I can't get more vulnerable today, fellas. And I hope it's inspiring some of you listening like, geez, Kris, like, is this planned? Is this coming out? Is your wife going to kill you when she hears this? Probably. What's up? Welcome back to Have It All. Kris Krohn here. And today we're talking about how to create lasting, permanent change. It seems like it's like one of the hardest conversations because everyone wants to see improvement in their life, and yet we're constantly trying. I tried this next fad. I tried this next diet. I tried this next thing, but it just didn't stick, Kris. It just didn't last. This whole idea of like change becoming permanent, it's just too hard. Is it even worth it? And then for that matter, how does that bleed into the conversation of like goal setting, like goals? It seems like every time I set them, I just give up on them anyway. So I've got the man, the myth, the legend that I'm having this conversation with. This is Dr. Alok. Dr. Alok, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm awesome, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Listen, your favorite raving fans call you Dr. Rewire because you're all about rewiring the brain.
I am. It's all about rewiring the brain so you can actually get it all, have it all, and be able to live the life that you want to.
And yet, once upon a time, you were in the fastest growing health clinic seeing over 1,200 patients a week. But that's not what you do anymore as a doctor. Like, explain that a little bit.
No, because in practice, it was great. It was fantastic to be able to help that many people. But what I realized is that it's the way that we think. And if I was able to help people think differently, I was able to heal people differently. And I could get to more people and help more people change the way that their life was. And what I found was most important is that people struggled in three major areas of their life: their health, their wealth, and their relationships. If I could rewire those three areas of their life, their physical symptoms went away.
That's really weird though, because people aren't going to a doctor for those things anyway, right? They're basically going to you when it's too late. I now have symptoms or I have problems, and now I want you to try to fix these things. That doesn't sound nearly as proactive as what you're suggesting.
It's not. You're always against the eight ball, and everyone comes in and says, fix my symptoms now, and then you got to fight the pharmaceutical companies, you got to fight the medicine out there, and the people want the results yesterday, but it didn't happen yesterday. It took years upon years upon years in order to get there. So you got to be able to get there and figure out what the cause of it was. But symptoms, when the symptom's there, it's too late.
So the reason why I've got Dr. Alok here today is because I'm really curious about his perspective as a doctor on how he rewires the mind. I'm curious to know how real it is. If it's temporary, is it actually really permanent? Is that permanency even really possible? He claims that there are things that he can do outside of his practice that he sold all those years ago, and that he's having more success with his clients today, going about it in a really weird way. That healing the body has to do with your relationship with people and your body and your finances. So we are going to get to the bottom of it. So Dr. Alok, thank you so much for being here. I think I just want to maybe kick off a little bit because I'm totally curious now.
Yeah.
How did you make this transition from I'm a doctor building this massive clinic, seeing all these people, to stepping into what others might consider pseudoscience of like, wait a second, you're telling me that we're having conversations that change my neurology and that will heal my better more than prescription drugs?
Well, I would have to say sometimes that prescription drugs are probably pseudoscience in some respect, because we don't know that they're going to work all the time. Half the time we're taking placebos inside of that. We don't know that it's actually really there. But what I found is that with patients, the more questions I asked, the more I digged into their relationship with themselves, their relationship with their money, the relationship with their spouses, their symptoms started to go away. And I found the neurological causes of where these things began and where it actually stemmed from. And then I realized that when I started asking the right questions, their physiology changed. And then I realized from the time I was a child, all I wanted to do was really get an understanding of the mind-body connection, right? And today we have a huge mental health epidemic, let's call it so to say, but it's not a mental health epidemic. I'm going to say that it's not that. It's a health epidemic, period, because you can't separate mental health from physical health. You can't separate physical health from mental health.
Okay, so how prolific do you think mental health issues are out there today? Is this just a small group of people?
No, it's huge. It's tremendously huge. But it's huge because of what we've built in our society. It's also huge because of the foods that we're eating. It's not just one or the other. It's not just a thinking problem, because 90% of your serotonin is made in your stomach. And if we're eating like garbage, that serotonin is going up the vagus nerve into the brain, and it's actually making you think ill thoughts. So the mind-body connection is absolutely real. And what I've discovered in practice is that the more people understood this, is that the more people are actually able to heal their life holistically, not just partial components inside of it.
Dude, your colleagues had to think you were insane when you sold your practice and you exited all of that to go off and start doing boot camps, workshops, and basically take an entirely different approach to healing.
Yeah, my parents thought I was nuts. They almost disowned me for a little bit.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. They were like, this is crazy. You don't do that. You don't give up a practice, the one you've built. Like, you don't do that. That's crazy talk.
Well, you also paid a lot of money for the medical degree.
Yeah, well, it was a chiropractic degree at the time, right? But yeah, I paid a lot of it, but I made that back. I'm grateful that I was that because it gave me the foundation of what I needed. But really, to be able to influence the world, I wanted to be able to help people heal. And healing to me is an acronym that I use calling helping energy align with love. Really, because at the end of the day, no matter what, it's love that's the healer. And I don't mean love from a, ethereal or romantic place. Love is as a balance in the body. That's what I'm talking about.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about it. You claim that there's this process that you've developed for helping people rewire feelings that link to experiences that they've had that they either perceive as traumatic or really kind of hold them back. Like dive in on that. And what are these core feelings that people struggle with that keep them stuck?
Yeah, there's 5 primary emotions I like to talk about. And they're infatuation, pride, shame, guilt, and resentment. These 5 emotions are the primary emotions that happen in any time we have a past, what I call root experience. I don't call it a trauma because traumas people thought were just negative events. And people would say, well, I don't have any traumas. I was never beaten, never molested, never lost any money, so I don't have any traumas. But the truth is our entire brain, our body, our physiology functions on a state of this. So we have these traumas, but I call them root experiences. Now you have positive and negative root experiences that shape your current destiny neurophysiologically.
Okay, so what's coming up for me right now is I'm like, okay, I'm just going to throw myself on the hot seat and let's have an experience because I want to just experience what you're talking about. Can we do that?
Sure.
So when I look at my life, I had already achieved a certain level of financial freedom when my child was 1 year old. And and then I spent about a decade working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, building wealth. And I remember just getting to a point where I felt guilty. Like I'm not there enough for my kids. Now I have 4 kids. My oldest she just turned 16.
That's awesome.
My youngest is 10 years old. They're all really, really tight and close together. And my oldest, daughter, she's amazing, but she sometimes struggles in her confidence. This last year we had a bad run with suicidal thoughts and I felt helpless at times. And it makes me feel at times guilty. Like, am I just not there enough for her? And then I got my second oldest child who struggles with autism. We've been able to do some beautiful things for him, but man, I had some self-worth issues when he was first born. Like, did I do something wrong? My other 2 children, they're really, really wonderful, but it's weird because I shifted a couple years ago to working a lot fewer hours. Like I'm working 25, 30 hours a week. And yet I still don't feel like I spend enough time with them. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, I know on the one hand, I'm giving them so much more of me than I would say maybe many other fathers are. Is that just wired into me? Can I do anything about it? Is it just the way it is? Do I have to live with this feeling?
No,
So I'm just being vulnerable right now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And you don't have to by any means. All human beings function from a set of values. You will look and plan your brain, and your brain will make more decisions as you see more benefits and drawbacks. 100% of the time. This is an absolute rule in the brain. And if you have a high value of family, which you do, you will sit and say, I'll spend more time with the family, right? And this is a big a construct that many entrepreneurs go through, right? Or if your primary role was to become financially independent, then you'll sit and say, my primary value is that, and you'll go after that first. You'll always function to your highest value to make sure that you're doing that first. So for you, for example, this guilt that you're feeling, it's a comparison. You're always comparing something from your past.
Yeah.
Inside of that. So you have a construct saying that I should spend more time with my kids.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether I do or not. It's still there anyway. It's like the feeling
Correct.
feels unshakable.
Yeah, and that should is someone else's projection, someone else's values on you. Mm-hmm. And those values then determine what you're going to do. And then you create the emotion.
All right.
But the emotion around it of should needs to get rewired.
Okay,
right?
so I'm putting myself out there. I know you've got these events that you do, and I'm imagining that, because I've never been to one of your events, but I'm imagining you pull people out of the audience and have these conversations with them. So
all day long.
I'm open.
Okay, so what's the benefit? To which child do you have this guilt towards?
I want I want to talk about my youngest boy who's 10 years old.
Okay.
I feel like my autistic son needs a different kind of father than he does, but my boys often do so much together. And so I feel like I'm giving sometimes my second oldest what he needs, but not my youngest boy.
And what do you think your youngest boy needs?
I feel like he needs his dad to be more physically engaged with him. He's he's very kinetic. He likes to throw the ball and he likes to do sports and he wants to wrestle. I don't wrestle with him.
Okay, so who is wrestling? Who is giving that kinetic need that he has?
He has friends he does that with. He kind of wrestles with anyone that comes in his airspace. So he kind of gets a little bit from everywhere.
And what's the benefit to him of those people wrestling with him?
Wow, it's amazing. I already feel the emotion. He is getting it. He's ensuring that he's getting it no matter what.
100%. Because nothing's missing inside of it. You're just attached to the form inside of it. You think you have to be the one giving it, but it doesn't. He's getting it in the way he's getting it. Now, if you were the one giving it, what would be the drawback to him?
The drawback to me...
To him?
Yeah, the drawback to him getting that from me is that I have provided him with an extraordinary life that he has opportunities at that I think many other dads may not have been able to give this particular child.
And so if you were there wrestling with him, not being able to give him these opportunities, what else would be a drawback to him? Would he have the type of care, the type of coverage, the type of, health care that he needs?
I get a little bit stuck on this because I feel like I've created so much wealth. I have options in life.
Sure.
There's just a part of me. And so I listen, I'm going to tangent, right? I don't think it's going to be that linear of a process with me. Because
No, but I want you to answer my question because you're going to try and take control of it, but it doesn't work.
Okay, fine.
I'm the doctor in the house, brother.
All right. It's my show. You're the doctor. Power struggle. Here we go. Go ahead. What's the question
So
again?
what's another drawback to him if you were the one who were actually wrestling with him? What else would be a drawback to him? He'd get attached to your form of wrestling?
He probably would. He'd probably get attached to the way that it looks with me versus others.
And then what's the drawback of that to him long term?
He may not get some of the exposure and experience with the other people that he is getting it with.
Great. And if you're the fact that you're actually being able to give him the financial solution for his life, now, if we can have a real conversation about it, right? He doesn't have to worry about that in his entire life.
No.
Where other families do have to worry about that. They think about, after they're gone. I have a friend of mine, his daughter's autistic as well. So I have these conversations with him. And as a child, or a father who's never had that in his life, we take that for granted.
Yeah.
There's definitely a whole different lane. I'm totally ignorant to it. Yeah. But I never thought about the long-term play. But you don't have to do that because you've been able to focus on what it was your highest value was.
Well, that's true because a lot of what I've been creating has been for every possible what if scenario because of some of those challenges.
Correct. So have you been wrestling with the world to be able to give him the ability to wrestle long term?
100% I have.
So are you really wrestling with him and for him, just in a different form too?
100%.
Would you change any of it?
No.
Can you thank yourself?
Thank you, Kris. You've been taking care of your families in unique ways, and you've chosen a good path.
And your son is getting the wrestle he needs. He will get his physical stimulation that he needs.
That's weird. That creates so much. That's amazing. You call it rebalancing, and I'm feeling the balancing right now where it's like, oh, wow, I was tipping one way, feeling guilt, and that guilt feels like it's gone now. Like it feels like there's a... It feels like I'm seeing 360 degrees right now.
That's exactly right. And you did, and thank you for allowing me to kind of pull you back, because you did what everybody wants to do. They want to defer and say, no, I'm going to go in a different story, a different tangent. But if you answer the questions, you will rebalance it. There's no question. It's a science inside of that. Because our brain says, no, but it's going to be different. My story's different.
They always start with, I'm unique.
Yeah.
I'm different.
And they're just not. They're just not.
We're all having very similar experiences with different funky wrapping paper.
It's just, it's called the human experience for a reason.
Yeah.
And so once we were able to rewire those 5 major emotions in each area of your life, you now have greater control to have it all.
That's an element that I'm really excited about. I'm glad that we're talking about this. Man, I'm going to let that sit in there for a little bit. There's beauty. There's something, I think, destructive about only being one-sided, considering one side of the coin, if you can't really get the full perspective of everything else at play that's working.
It's the way that I look at it is this, right? It's a healing modality. But what it does is that for business, for entrepreneurs, for CEOs, when they sit down and work through this, we're all dealing with emotional challenges as we are emotional creatures. But if we can reorganize them, then we can things holistically, objectively, and see them with the ability of what's really happening versus our emotional chaos and our emotional blinders we're putting on reality.
It's really fast. It's a very, very fast process.
That's why I call it anti-therapy.
Oh, well, that's pretty cool too. I mean, I have my own events. I have my own approach to breakthrough. I've written a book about it. I've sat through Tony Robbins and seen the way he does interventions. But I have to admit, this is probably the fastest process I've ever experienced that creates rapid resolution. It's very cool.
Yeah, I like to say that there's the longest I've taken Crohn's disease, lupus, you name it, diabetes. I mean, 45 minutes, eating disorders, 45 minutes. I can rewire it all, and it's gone. It's history. Because the reason why we want to make permanent, lasting change is because the brain is searching for balance. Holistically, the brain is searching for balance. We have to get it to balance. By asking the right questions, we rebalance the brain, and it now can evolve to the next level.
So let's have someone who's listening to this kind of break this down.
Sure.
You're saying that there are these 5 core emotions that get us stuck from moving forward, and that when we're stuck, tell me if I'm saying it wrong, but when we get stuck here in the brain, then eventually it's going to manifest as a problem in the body.
100%.
And so the 5 core feelings where we feel stuck are, again, infatuation, which has to do with
looking up to someone, thinking someone's better than you.
Okay, so this is, I call it the sin of comparison. I compare myself to someone else and I deem myself not worthy.
100%.
The next one?
Pride.
Pride. And pride is?
Pride is feeling that you've achieved something, you've done something, you're better than someone because you did it.
Okay, so they're almost opposites to each other, right?
Correct.
One is I compare myself and I'm not worthy. The other one is I compare myself and I'm better than.
Better.
And both are out of balance.
100%.
The third one?
Resentment.
Okay, and resentment.
Resentment is in the past when you think someone has done to you and caused you more pain than pleasure.
And you can't let go. So it's being stuck in the past. The fourth one?
Guilt is where you think you've done something to someone else in the past and caused them more pain.
Got it. And the last one?
Shame is where you've done something to yourself in the past and caused yourself more pain.
So the other 3 have to do with past. So there's this dichotomy in the present of the first 2 where it's like either I don't measure up or I'm better than, and both of those are out of balance. The other 3 are variations of the way we reflect on our past negatively.
They're all still related to the past. Even the pride is of the past.
Yes.
And the infatuation is of the past.
So really where we get stuck is in the past, which keeps
right.
us from being present, that keeps our body from functioning as well as it should.
And then if you take it a step further, because of the shame and the guilt and the emotions of the past, we look into the future and we create fantasies of the future because of that, to compensate for the emotions of the past.
Okay, so someone that's listening to this says, okay, I'm identifying with one of those 5 issues. I've recently felt that emotion. It's strong within me. Your next step, it seems to be, is just to kind of figure out the story. Where in the past is that most prevalent?
I would sit and say, the first thing to do is just sit and say, what is the story?
Yeah.
And generally speaking, is to look at it and say, okay, well, how did this story serve me? It's a simple question.
Yeah.
But how did this story
So
serve
how is
me?
this good for me? So I'm saying it's bad because I have one of these nasty 5 emotions, and you're basically saying, well, actually, let's see 360 degrees. How's it good?
Well, I'm going to say it's not good or bad because those are judgments inside of itself. I'm going to say, how did it serve me to get me where I want to go?
Okay, so basically not the disadvantage, but the benefit.
Correct.
And so we attach energetically to the words good and bad, and they in of themselves produce judgments that don't help you actually produce a whole rebalance.
Correct. And what it does, you oscillate between good and bad and good and bad.
So when someone says, well, I'm feeling bad about this thing, and it's shame, it's guilt, it's one of these things, what you're really saying is actually you're seeing the disadvantages of something that occurred in history.
That's right.
And then what you're saying is, show me the benefits. How is this a good thing?
And how did it serve my future?
How does it serve my future? Okay, so once you've done that, what's the next step?
Well, then you want to look at it and say, okay, how do you rebalance this? And say, okay, it's serving my future. Now, if the opposite had happened, the delusion, this fantasy I was under that things shouldn't have happened the way that it is, if the opposite had happened, what would have been the benefit?
You're really looking at it 4-dimensionally. You're hitting it from all those angles. And once you've had a chance to fully explore and really see that there are advantages to both sides, disadvantages to both sides, and it's simply the choice that you made that you felt best with, you can start coming to terms with it.
That's right.
And then you get to ask what question.
Well, you don't ask yourself, you won't come to terms with it, you'll actually be grateful for it.
Yeah. So you're waiting for the shift to hit gratitude.
That's it. That gratitude is the gateway that opens the inside, that allows you to see what's happening. That's the healing mechanism.
We're going to do this again in just a minute. I'm going to find some other garbage inside of me because this is great. I love this. So gratitude means that we're getting to some type of shift, and there's a question that I heard that you asked.
I always ask, would you change anything in the past?
And when the answer is finally no,
then would you thank yourself? Because whatever you've done or haven't done has to serve you, because the currency is still service.
And if I can thank myself, resolution occurs.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Sweet. I like it. Let's do another one. In my past, I was frustrated. I had sexual frustration at my wife because I didn't feel like I felt like I was working as hard as I possibly could, and that I should have been deserving of the love in the expression and the manner that I wanted to receive it. And I wasn't getting that. This was years ago, and I'm like, okay, do I still have some resentment on that towards her, that she wasn't giving me what I thought I needed? Let's do that.
So
I can't get more vulnerable today, fellas, than what we're talking about today. Because I like to live on the edge of a knife where I'm growing. And I hope it's inspiring some of you listening, like, geez, Kris, like, is this planned? Is this coming out? Is your wife going to kill you when she hears this? Probably. But listen, let's make it real, right?
So at that time, where were you getting the connection?
Through my work, through my business.
And you probably had customers and clients and seminar attendees, and you were getting the physical connection through there.
I was, yes.
Right? Not intimate. We're being,
sure.
Right? Just, you're getting touched and connected. Now,
I was feeling acceptance. I was feeling maybe even the pride of, hey, you did something good for me. I was feeling good that I was serving them, right? Like I was transmuting the energy that I was hoping over here.
Now watch this. Your wife was the one who was balancing out all the attention you were getting from the outside at home. You weren't getting the attention? Mm-mm. So you were getting excess attention on the outside.
Yes.
And she wasn't giving the attention at home.
Yes, because I was out of balance.
And what was the balance? What was the benefit of your wife not giving you that attention?
I think that honestly, she was in a place where she needed. I think she was so new to the concept of marriage. Both of us came in as virgins, and I think that she needed some time to expand into this new form of a relationship for the two of us.
And think about this, if you're getting excess attention on the outside, what was the drawback of that attention?
It wasn't always the form of love that I wanted to receive.
Great. What was the drawback of the form that you were getting? It was fleeting?
Yeah, it wasn't. It couldn't fill the gap, the hole.
Great. What was another drawback of that?
It was temporary. It was I had spent a lot of time to get it. I had to there was a tremendous amount of output to produce the results.
It's a lot of work
for people. It was a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
What's another drawback of that?
Here we go. I lost years pursuing the wrong thing until I finally figured it out.
So was your wife the governing mechanism to bring you back to balance?
Yeah, she was.
So her withholding during that phase of her life was actually the mechanism you needed in order to govern yourself, to bring back to the values that are authentic to you?
It's totally true.
Would you thank your wife?
Oh, honey, thank you for being the way you were. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to learn and grow. Thank you for helping me find balance by creating chaos and a huge imbalance, and to learn the lesson that I couldn't get enough of what I didn't need.
Would you change any of it?
No, super happy.
See, the thing is this, right? As guys, and men are very vulnerable to this. You, myself, we're all in this. I went through the same phase in my marriage before in the past, where I said I wasn't getting love the way that I wanted to. The reality is that when you're building business and you're growing, you're getting love. You're not missing it. You're just getting it in a different form than you're expecting it.
It's very, very true.
Right? I was getting it from my patients. I was getting hugs from my staff, my patients. They're like, "Oh, doc, thank you so much."
Well, dude, 1,200 appointments a week.
That's
there was
a
a
lot of
time
people.
when you were grinding.
Yeah, I was grinding. I was working my tail off. But I wasn't getting it at home. And I thought, well, marriage is supposed to have this is the way it's supposed to be. And as soon as I put the label of supposed to be,
the judgment,
that's the expectation that I'm supposed to put on that.
Yeah, then your relationship goes
from
from unconditional to transactional. That's so sexy for women. They love that. That's sarcasm, ladies. That's sarcasm. So insightful and so enlightening. Guys, you're literally hearing right now from Dr. Alok, Dr. Rewire, and he has a super bizarre approach that I think is actually really beautiful, that stems from the body and the biology and his pursuit of wanting to heal the body with a more successful approach. And I've just got a chance right here on this episode to go through it twice. And I'm just telling you right now, I feel a shift in my soul. Its axis has corrected itself. And it is gratitude. You're right. That's the process. So you got to figure out which of those 5 core elements that you're out of sync with. You go to the history of what happened. You figure out where it was most prevalent for you. You explore why the thing that you perceived to be so quote unquote bad had benefits. Then you also proceed, you do the opposite had you gotten the way that you actually wanted. Then you get a chance to ask if you would have changed anything. And then if you feel good about it and you're ready, then you accept it, embrace it, and thank yourself or them for it and shift.
And this is, this is the most basic of elements inside of this. There's 92 different methods that I use to rewire the brain.
Do you certify people in this?
Not yet. We're working on it.
Wow. So you must have some pretty popular workshops.
Yeah, they do. We do. Our workshops are great. We have a program called Total Rewire where people get to learn and they get to identify what their real core values are, their identities inside of it. I take them through what I call the belief inventory to really understand what their true beliefs are neurologically inside of that. And then I rewire. Then they get to rewire themselves. They see their patterns. And then they get to understand there's a process that I take people through in understanding their mission.
Yeah.
And I rewire the entire brain from one experience that's happened in your life. And it's probably one of the most powerful experiences. If I can share a quick story. We had one guy one time, he was reading his mission. He had a stutter the entire event. As he's reading his mission, his stutter went away and he healed itself. And when we rewire the brain in that capacity, it heals itself.
Yeah.
We know that the body can heal itself. We just have to give it the environment to do so. We've been doing it physically for all these centuries. Now we have the right mentality to give mental longevity a real chance and have the mind-body connection be real. That's the science of today.
Well, brother, I'm telling you right now, I'm looking forward to heading to your event. And if these wonderful people want to learn more about you, how can they do that? Is there a website or social media? Where do they learn more?
Yeah, you can find me on social media. drrewire.com is the website. You can get lots of information there. All our events are there. If you're interested in learning more, there's a financial program I do. It's drrewiregift.com. If anyone's who's listening to this, I'll just give them 2 months of free coaching in the program.
Super generous.
As a part of that. Just because if you understand that about money, and what's going to happen is that with your work and what you give them, the strategies, the tools, that's so important. If I can help them rewire pieces of it, your tools will help them catapult their life. There's no question. And that's what I'd love to be for them in that capacity. So,
Dr. Loke, thank you so much for being here on Have It All. And listen, guys, you can join us next time, next episode, and we're going to keep it real.